look at analysing the question, which says that the equation for this reaction is shown. So you're shown zinc being extracted using carbon. We did this when we talked about inorganic chemistry. We talked about how we turn things like copper carbonate into copper, and how we turn iron oxides into iron. Particularly useful process. So we state the chemical change that occurs when the compounds lose oxygen. If they lose oxygen, remember that is reduction. We covered that when we did our multiple guess questions before. It's reduction. Then says, state the name given to any chemical reaction that absorbs, takes in heat energy. So energy is going in, so it's endothermic. Good. And so, okay, so that's our easy bit. So then it says, explain why zinc can be extracted from zinc oxide by heating with carbon, but magnesium cannot be extracted. So we have to explain. What does explain mean? What does explain mean? You might require some detail. Certainly, the bit that tells us we require detail is the fact it's 2 marks. So we want to be very precise about our answering. But what does explain mean? Why is explain different from describe?
Because you have to say why.
That's what. Thank you. Perfect. Explain means you say why. Describe is what happens. Explain is to say why. So we describe the ceiling as being white. Why is the ceiling white? Because it reflects lots of light, so it makes the room feel lighter. It's more efficient. It's more efficient with our lighting. Okay, that's the difference, isn't it? Yeah? Explain means why. So, explain why zinc can be extracted. So, first of all, so what's the key knowledge we're looking for here? Arian?
You need to do the reactivity series.
The reactivity series, good. So, if we're extracting by reduction with carbon, what does that tell you about the metal you're extracting? Is it more reactive or less reactive than carbon? Spot on. So, zinc is less reactive. Now here's where precision comes in. Less reactive than what? Less reactive than my shoes? No, less reactive than carbon. So we actually state it. We be very precise in our answer. Less reactive than carbon. Okay? And so what does that allow to take place? What's the reaction where we take an atom from a compound and swap it for an atom that's not in a compound? We call it, begins with D. Thank you. Wow. Okay, lots of answers coming back here. It's less reactive than carbon. So what's been displaced here? Is the zinc been displaced? It's the oxygen. Yeah. So oxygen can be well. We can say displacement happens. I think that's easier, isn't it? So displacement occurs, and then it says why magnesium cannot be extracted. It's the exact opposite sort of response, isn't it? The magnesium is more reactive. So that's what we write. Is more reactive than carbon. Okay, so displacement doesn't happen. Now, you've got clues as to what level of detail you have to go into here. Your clues are number of marks. So the examiner is looking for 2 things. Because in the examiner's mark scheme, there'll be 2 or 3 things listed, and if you mention 2 things out of those, you get the 2 marks. Okay? So you have to think very precisely. You've got to mention at least 2 things. And also, you've got 3 lines. Now, if in your answer it's 2 marks and you fill up half a line only, you know you've not gone into enough detail. That tells you straight away. The examiner's given you 3 lines for a reason. Okay? So, part B. Now, this caused a little bit of consternation when we were working with this together. So, excess zinc oxide is added to dilute sulfuric acid. Okay? Excess means, what does excess mean? It means that there's some left over. Yeah? So all the carbon, all sulfuric acid will be reacted, but there'll probably be some zinc oxide left. So it says a zinc salt. So there's our first clue, a salt. What is a salt? It is begins with I. What type of compound are salts? There's metallic, covalent, ionic. Yeah, a salt is an ionic compound, therefore a metal and non-metal. Okay, so that gives us something there. That's in our products. Complete the word equation. So we know if we've got a base, a zinc oxide base, and dilute sulfuric acid, we know that we're going to get a displacement. So we're going to end up with water, because we know that when you neutralise an acid with a base or an alkaline, you end up with water. And we're going to think about how we get that. Well, what's going to happen is the oxygen and the sulfur are going to swap over. So we end up with zinc sulfate. Whoops, because I've shrunk the page down, it's not quite fitting, but there we've got zinc sulfate. What's wrong with my answer here?
It's a word equation.
Write the word, okay? You'd probably get away with it in an exam, in reality, but really we want to be precise. We want to answer precisely. So describe the pH value of the reaction mixture during this reaction. The pH value is going to neutralise, isn't it? Yeah, it's going to neutralise. Now, if we start off with an acid, is that a high pH number or a low pH number? It'll be a low pH number, and it'll increase. Okay. So what happens to pH value? It increases. Now, is it going to continue increasing beyond 7? No. So it increases up to pH 7 for neutral. Okay. You see, with just that little bit of extra thinking, you can really add that precision to your answers. And as I ask questions around the room, I can see you guys have got the knowledge, but it's practice. We've got to practice so that we can turn that knowledge into precise, valuable answers. So an atom of zinc is represented here. The number of electrons and neutrons. Remember, this is our atomic mass. So this is neutrons and protons. I think some of you are a little bit unsure about this one. It's protons, but also, if it's neutral, it'll be balanced out by electrons going around the outside. So this number gives us number of protons and therefore the number of electrons. So there are 30 electrons. This gives us a total number of neutrons and protons. Now, quite a few people in this room, I know, work visually. You draw pictures in your mind. You use imagination. Okay, it's part of creativity. It's part of how we visualise things. So I think of bags of apples. You could think of bags of balls, bags of footballs, 2 different colours. Okay, so you could think about let's choose a red and white footballs. Okay. Imagine the red footballs are protons, the white footballs are neutrons. The bag contains 65 footballs, 30 of them are red, so the neutrons are the white footballs, so there must be 35 footballs left. Okay? And it's that simple. Okay? Right. Now, the next question we're going to do some deliberate practice on is going to be question number 5.